we may just end up with a new blue seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, or possibly two, from the least expected place you might think, and for the least expected reasons. This goes back to 2018, but a lot of people are thinking it's a brand new situation, and it just so happens to align with the Texas gerrymandering mess and the California response to it. And it has nothing to do with either. The timing is just a glorious coincidence. God works in mysterious ways, shall we say. Backstory. Utah has been very gerrymandered. Something like a third of the population votes Democrat. You would never know it. We have a massive supermajority of Republicans. We're talking like 90% in the local legislature. We haven't had a Democratic senator in probably 30, 40 years, something like that. But there used to be a point where we did have one district that sometimes could flip blue in recent years. No, not even almost. So we had people like Mike Lee representing us. It's been a problem. In 2018, there was a ballot initiative. And getting a ballot initiative in Utah is hard. You need to get a bazillion signatures and all that. It's hard to do. But they did it. They got it onto the ballot. The idea was to get an independent, so politically independent commission to create new maps that were not gerrymandered. Now, obviously, it had a lot of opposition, and Republicans were like, we can't give up our control, so it passed, not by a ton, but it passed. The legislature was not happy with that. No. In the middle of all this, the legislature also put out their own new gerrymandered maps, and it's horrific. Like,
oh my God!
It's insane. When I was younger, we had 3 districts in the House. Now, population growth, we ended up with a 4th. Here's how they decided to gerrymander it. So Salt Lake County is the highest dense population in the state. It has about a third of the state's population. They decided to break it up into 4ths, basic boundary of Salt Lake County. There's a chunk of Salt Lake County in every single one of the 4 districts. District 2, they color it blue, but it's almost the same color as the Great Salt Lakes. So I drew a line in there so you can kind of hopefully see the boundary. But you can see where you end up with chunks from all four districts have chunks of Salt Lake County, splitting up that entire vote, which is mostly Democratic. They did something similar with Utah County. It's still primarily Republican, but the northern half of Utah County is definitely the most liberal and also the most populous chunk of Utah County. Now, I didn't do the math on all of Utah County, figuring out how much these, because I'm not doing that right now, but ballpark, even if we say just half of the population of Utah County lives in the top half, which I know it's more than that, that's still another 13% minimum of the population that they split in half to go into one district on one side and one district on the other. And in fact, they split the district largely along the I-15 freeway. So if you live on the east side, you're in one district. If you're on the west side, you live on the other. So ridiculously gerrymandered. I'm skipping over a lot here, but essentially, a couple years later, they decide to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would make it so that any ballot initiative passed by the voice of the people, mind you, the legislature could change. They could do with it what they will. They could ignore it, they could change it, they could whatever, which meant that the people would no longer have a voice in anything. We couldn't change anything. Didn't matter what was on the ballot. They tried to sneak that onto the ballot at the very last minute. And not only that, but they allowed the partisan people to write up the description for the ballot. People who hadn't read the entire thing, which is most voters, let's be honest. It was phrased with stuff like, oh, so the people would have more of a voice, blah, 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 which was an absolute lie, absolute crap. So they tried to get it on the ballot last minute. Fortunately, we had some organizations run and powered by women, like the League of Utah Women Voters or something like that, and then also Mormon Women for Ethical Government, as well as Better Boundaries. They've been pushing for all of this. They immediately went to court and said, you can't put this on the ballot. And fortunately, our judicial system is pretty good for the most part here in Utah. They said, yeah, this is misleading at best. And also, you missed a lot of cutoffs, and you can't put this on the ballot. Some of the ballots have been printed with it on it, but any votes will not be counted because this is an invalid thing. That did not go over well, as you can imagine. So that was last year. It was supposed to be on the ballot. It's been all the stuff has been dragging through the courts. But as of yesterday, as I record this, August 25th, this is when the decision from the Utah Supreme Court came down, saying that no, you cannot use those maps. You have to go back and redraw them. I think they have a month to do it, and so that they will be ready to go for the midterm elections next year for 2026. So of course state majority leader is like, oh, we're so disappointed. We'll look forward to fighting this in court so that the people of Utah can have more of a voice. I'm like, you are a schmuck. And if you know anything about our current Senate majority leader in Utah, he's not a good man. Let's just put it that way. You can look him up. He's pulled some crap lately. And alas, our governor has kind of supported him on that. Gross. So, point being, a lot of people are like, oh yay, gerrymandering is now it's being pulled back in Utah, thanks to the Texas stuff. And it's not. This has been going on, like I said, since 2018. The battle court stuff, 4 or 5 years now. I don't know, but the decision just came down. Thank heavens to all of those women run organizations that pushed and pushed and pushed to make this happen. But the upshot is now we might very well have at least one, if not two, flip blue at a time when we need every blue seat we can possibly get. So that is exciting, and I can only hope that will actually happen. No doubt the Utah legislature will do their best to attack this judge who wrote the decision, that they will do the best they can to try to undo whatever they can. Hopefully we have some dominoes falling that will give us our voice back. Here's the other joyful thing. In Utah, if you're not registered as a Republican, you cannot vote in the Republican primary. And the reality is, because of how the state is so gerrymandered, whoever wins the Republican primary is basically who wins the general election. It doesn't matter who's on the general ballot. Whoever wins the Republican primary wins the election. So if you don't have a voice in the Republican primary, you don't really have a voice. So I know a lot of people who are registered Republican just so they can vote. That's me too. Yeah. I actually used to consider myself Republican, but in later years, no. Eli McCann goes into a bit more detail. He's a lawyer, so he can go into a little bit more on his TikTok. But that's basically sort of the gist. But I wanted to show you the maps because it's just bonkers how completely obviously gerrymandered they are. You can also see on the maps where the population centers are in Utah. It's pretty clear. In the center, for the most part, and most of the other districts are just it's the wildlife, the touristy areas, national parks, all that stuff. Southwest, you get St. George, you get Washington County area, and that's somewhat populated. But yeah, for the most part, that's been massively gerrymandered, and it's, at least for now, it's coming to an end. Halla freaking Luya.